While, hasn't it? It's been over 10 days since he's done a day 9 daily. But we made it. It's Tuesday. It's March 20th, 2012. And though I can't speak, this is day 9 daily number 431, I think. My god, my hair looks spiky. Holy cow. Oh my god, it's time to learn to be a better gamer and hairstylist. I have been away for a long time. First of all, going to South by Southwest, where I talked a little bit about StarCraft and online video, and then I went to a gala for Forbes on Tuesday night, and then, for the last 5 days, in case you didn't tune in, I was doing the Red Bull LAN Orlando, where I got to do all the production and graphics and setup and all the interviews, and it was so fun. And of course, if you didn't get the chance to tune in, it's being uploaded right now. If you go to day9.tv, you'll find all sorts of wonderful Webula segments, and I hope specifically that you check out the interview pieces that we got to do with Thorzane, Hasuabs, Sheth, and Rhett. And let me just note that because future lands will be occurring, anything you want, please let me know. Send it to feedback at day9.tv. Anything that you would want to see different, that you would want to see included, that you would want to see excluded, like throwing stuff out, please let me know. Sky's the limit. I want you to think huge. Don't think little tiny and petite thoughts about improvements for the Red Bull LAN. I want you to go nuts. If you want like a bat signal that has the Day 9 logo and you think that would make a better event, please include that. I would love to know about it, because if we know the extremes, even though I might not be able to promise that we can include them, we at the very least know what it is that you want. Yeah. So, what I wanted to also do is take a moment to congratulate the Rosen brothers, who did the wonderful Lone Star Clash that happened simultaneously. I would like to give as huge credit to them, because I honestly got the chance to meet them last year at MLG. Dallas, I think it was. Or maybe it was even the Dallas in 2010. Wow, it may have been quite a while ago. And there were just some guys who just started up the Texas Esports Association and were really enthusiastic about StarCraft and wanted to do more big things. And all it took was for them to decide to do it. Ladies and gents, it is that easy for you to make a difference, just to dedicate yourself to doing something awesome. So huge mad props to them. I know how impossible live event production can be, but you nailed it. So today, speaking of nailing it, oh yes, I'm so happy to be back. I'm so happy to be back. I love doing the daily. Doing the daily is awesome. It is no pressure. I just get to watch games of StarCraft, and I get to talk about games of StarCraft, which is my favorite thing to do in the whole wide world. And of course, I get to see you. Hi. See, I can see everyone in the chat. Who's hanging out in the chat with me right now? We have Drodo, I see in the chat. Duminekan, whose name I can't say properly. I wonder if Kitty's in there. Hello, Kitty. Oh, hi, Cyan Theory. Incognitus is there as well. The mods. Hi, guys. Hi. Yeah. Oh, it's so good to see you. I'm so delighted to be here. So, rather than go into the daily, I have two brief announcements to make. Two extra special, small brief announcements before we start. One is that I will be going to MLG Columbus on Thursday. So there will be no daily then, but you'll see me on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as I'm casting. There will also, too, be a Fun Day Monday, the first Fun Day Monday in, ages. Oh, Fun Day Monday is the following. I would like you to submit to me a replay as a Protoss player where you may only have one pylon that powers all of your important core structures. Only one. I mean, you can have pylons that power cannons, you can have pylons on other locations where you warp in, but you can only have one pylon that has all your buildings. So if you want to do double forge upgrades and you need more gateways, you might have to kill off those forges and replace them with gateways. It's all about compactifying. It's just the one pylon, the single lone pylon. And as an added bonus, just to spice things up a little bit, it cannot be in your main base. Yeah! Alright, now that's actually an impossible Fun Day Monday, but that's alright because you're doing it, not me. Zing! You must have one Artosis pylon that is outside your base with everything around. Oh, thanks for letting me know, Incognitus, that my Skype was not on D&D. Fantastic. Yes, one Artosis pylon that has all your vital structures on it. You cannot have two powering. and it must not be in your base. I'm a jerk, but that's okay. Now let's go ahead and hop into today's topic. I had the delight of doing daily number 394, where we talked about Thorzane's Terran vs. Terran. And in that, we talked a lot about the line that you were controlling, where your tanks were, the expansions that were behind the line, and that's pretty high level and abstract. And in particular, you may not even get to that stage in the game. I am someone who loves talking about the mid and late game, and then sort of refining my openings to get there, but maybe you are not someone like me who spends 50 to 60 hours a week studying StarCraft. Or playing it. Maybe you just play 5 to 10 games a week, and that's great. This daily is for you. We're going to look at 3 openings and just talk about the opening. Sure, we'll maybe dabble into some thoughts on the mid game, but we want to think from StarCraft in today's daily as from the start of the game onward. Normally, I think from the middle of the game and sort of work backwards. Not today. We're going to step into some simple games, so that way you can maybe steal this build and know why it is the build that you're stealing and what makes it awesome. So let me enable the sound and let's go into the daily, the day-night daily with Puma. Oh, that's so good. Alright, so we have Puma spawning here on the top right. We're going to watch 3 games of Puma against MMA, where Puma managed to successfully defeat MMA in a best of 5 in the IEM World Championships. And what we're going to do is look at this opening, and we're going to think in all of these circumstances why the opening is good. In other words, what it defeats, the things we need to think about, what are the considerations of it, and what situations where we'd want to use it or use something else. And also let me note, this game is the simplest of the 3, so we're doing it in part 1. The most complex one we're doing in part 2. And then sort of an addendum to part 2 will be the 3rd game in part 3. Simplest ever. And let me once again remind you of daily number 394, Thorzane's Terran vs. Terran style. We talk about the build in that one, but in particular the mid and late game control. So you can take these openings and utilize the concepts from the first one. Or from that earlier daily as a continuation. So you're already probably noticing that there's this gas geyser going down. Because I'm focusing on the nitty-gritties of the build, I am going to back up, forgive me. We're going to be going gas first. This is a build that you can use. Gas on 12. Rather than racks on 12, we gas on 12. Aw, yeah. Here we go. So following this up, we just do constant SCV productions all the way up to 13. Now, one thing that I'm going to just note right now, Puma is not actually going to scout. Doesn't that make this opening really great? You don't even need to know what the hell your opponent's doing. You can just do it. Ah, excelente. SCV ready. And when our geyser finishes, we put 3 into the gas. And of course, one of the considerations, when would I not want to do this map? Maybe on a map like Shattered Temple, where we're a little bit closer distances and we're worried about being attacked. On Antigua Shipyard, you'll notice that the distances are quite far between bases, so it makes it a little bit safer to get away with something like this. But for the most part, I'm pretty comfortable taking my gas first, if I damn well please, to be honest. I'll gas if I want to. SCV ready. So EG's Puma is going to be coming on out, immediately finishing his barracks, building a marine, immediately building the orbital command. You'll notice that the orbital command timing is a little bit later than usual, but you ideally don't want to let him see that you are in this particular position. Ideally, you don't want to let him know that you went gas first. If MMA is really observant, he's going to notice just based on the timings. But a lot of times when you go for gas and then barracks, right when the barracks finishes, you'll have enough to build a factory. Puma is being pretty adamant about just making sure that his plan is hidden most of all. And then he's more than happy making a Happy Time factory at the backside. Again, I want you to know that there's no scouting going on. No scouting at all. And immediately following this, he gets a second refinery right after he starts the factory. Now, again, I just want to note, you can build this factory insta-ASAP. But there's nothing wrong with doing what Puma does and just being a little bit sneaky and just trying to protect himself. Now, in terms of scouting, Puma is not going to be doing anything like trying to figure out where his opponent is, trying to just set an SCV cross map. When you do this gas-first style, you really desperately need all those SCVs mining minerals to make the timings line up nicely. And you can see that our factory is already quite a ways ahead of our opponents. Sure, MMA went for a Reaper, but unless your opponent does anything but an ultra-fast, super crazy rush, you generally will have your starport pretty on pace. But the important thing with this build is the gas. This build we're going to see is really easy. It's a one-base build. He's just getting a lot of gas early on. He went gas first, then factory, and then another gas geyser. And in fact, just to go to the every cam, we do see that MMA has gotten both of his geysers. Notice that he's mined 100 from this one, and he's mined 200 from this one, and almost 100 from this one. Meanwhile, in Camp Puma, we've mined a little bit more from our first one, and a little bit less from our second one. MMA was actually quite fast, snagging up both of these gas geysers. Almost always, we're going to have a teensy bit of a gas lead. So, as we see, Puma is going to do a couple of smart additions to this build that I think are really the important subtleties of it. He's just placing his Marines at the backside so that way he can't be caught off guard by some sort of Reaper. Honestly, the front is never going to be attacked by Marines. Maybe it'll be attacked by a Hellion, but we're pretty much cool there. In this matchup, you can almost always place your additional Marines at the backside. And place another Marine maybe in this region to deal with some sort of Reaper that pops up.
Add-on complete.
But what I like about what we're going to see Puma do here is it's like as blind as it gets, right? Following this, we get the reactor on the barracks. The factory is literally just going to hang out for a bit. And what we're going to do is go for this very, very, very early timing push, and we get Cloak first right off the bat. This is kind of the reason why we got this geyser so early, followed by that one. We want to get the gas started right away, and we obviously want to build a Banshee. But more importantly, we want to have the gas to be able to sneak in a reactor. Do. So right now what we've done is basically done the... You know, I'll be honest, we've basically done like a really simple Banshee with Cloak play. Really simple. At the same time, though, what makes this build seem simple or obvious is just the fact that it's done quite often a lot in the pros. So if you're an experienced watcher, you might be like, oh, that's totally clear. If you're a less experienced watcher, or maybe you're just watching StarCraft 2 for the first time, you may have never seen this sort of style before. And whether you are the person who's seen it a lot or the person who's never done it before, the most important thing is that we know the reasoning behind it. It's very easy to see this and go, well, he's going fast Banshee, and that sort of standard thing. But being able to state we want gas here and then gas here so that way we can get the reactor might be a little surprising. We have the Marines here because we don't need them at the front. And look, we immediately repel a Reaper. Might be a little bit interesting and surprising. So at this point in time, the build becomes fairly clear. He's going to be sending his factory down to this low ground to build a tech lab. This is kind of the interesting part of it, the fact that he will essentially be going for a 1-1-1 formation. But the factory is planted in a position so that way it's a fast distance to his base. If this were on Shattered Temple, like imagine this was on the cliff on Shattered Temple, maybe floating it out here so that the factory is a little bit faster. That way you can move down a little bit more mobily. Now, let's identify some of the builds that we think he could be doing. I mean, in almost all circumstances, we want to be building these additional Banshees. If he is also going Banshee, we'll probably want to be throwing down a Viking of our own. But the one little bit of information that we got, that Reaper popping up, helped us so much. At this point, if we had seen nothing, we would want to build a Viking. And we'd want to be stopping on this orbital command production. This orbital command energy. Dropping of mules thing. We want to be saving for scans, damn it. But at this point in time, you'll notice that almost intuitively, if we're getting a fast Banshee, and so is he, his Banshee should be finished at the same time as ours. So if we just build a Viking right now, we end up being fine. And that syncs up with our saving up of things. But of course, we saw that Reaper, so that gives us a good bit of evidence. I generally steer clear of doing, of throwing a mule down right here. The only other thing that I would say be comfortable doing is a scan, which is exactly what we end up doing. The scan placement can be a little bit difficult to do. But for the most part, just make sure you cover as much area as possible. A lot of times people will scan here to see if he's expanding or not. But I want to point out, for this build, we don't really care if he's expanding or not. And this is why. There's one of two circumstances. He's expanding or he's not. And even though that sounds obvious, it's still important that we break it into these two. Because if he's expanding, we're doing a really aggressive tank Banshee Marine push. We almost want that to be the circumstance. That would be very good for us. So if he's expanding, whether we see it or whether we don't, we know we're going to crush it when our attack comes. The other circumstance is where he's not expanding. And we would want as much information as possible to know for a fact, can I build Banshee number 2 or do I need to cancel? What vulnerability is here that I would need to exploit? And so if you are doing this build, make sure you're scanning in here and not at the expansion. And yes, my shirt is very wrinkly. It was stuffed in a drawer. And of course, we're getting scanned pretty nicely as well ourselves. But I like that the scan is as centered as it humanly possibly can be. Of course, we're just going to go obvious mode from here on out, where we're just going to be going tanks, Banshees, and Marines. The last thing we want to get is the siege mode upgrade. Do not, for the love of God, get this too early. Make sure all those other key pieces are started first. And literally, we're just going to build stuff and rally stuff. There's the rally point. Notice we don't need to be extremely refined with our macro. We're still in good shape. We just build stuff, rally stuff. And that's pretty much that. What we really want to be doing at this point in time is forcing him to be building to be either getting a Raven, to be spending resources building Vikings. This is actually going to help us a lot because Vikings are not good against Marines and tanks. His Marines, we would love to pick off. We would really love to pick off. For the record, try not to go too crazy picking off the SCVs. If we're doing a big timing push where we're going to try to win right now, you don't want to kill off SCVs and mess up his economy. You want to make them as squishy and weak as possible. So generally Marines is what you want to be hitting on right now. So as we go back to that Puma cam. I mean, he is shooting SCVs, but if things start to draw in, he wants to pick them off. The most important thing that Puma's working with right now is this open space. Notice, oh, he sees a Marine, and he's going to hunt that bad boy down. He's not going to sit here and park. He wants to make his opponent as squishy as possible. And there's the scan. We're totally happy with that. We're just going to try to fly away. Notice, more than willing to take a few extra shots to pick off a Marauder, because we want him to be nice and squishy. And sure, he can track us down, but now we're just going to do a direct push at the front. Now, the last thing that I want to say before we go into break is, when do you want to do this build? Well, now is a perfect time to answer that question. When there is an area where we can siege up and hit his main and be pushing into his natural at the same time. A lot of areas where there are cliffs, or cliffs like this, where he's going to want to be doing some sort of cutesy defense, this build is great. The Banshee that is somewhere around here, where is the Banshee? I know we have one. Where is it? Anyone see the Banshee? Anyone? Ah, I found it! Banshee gives vision, and as a result, we can happily be muling back at home. We see a fresh mule's just been dropped. Only one scan was planted down. Don't go too crazy with your scans. If you can, the instant you see a Raven, you should know that you don't have to scan anymore. Yeah, pretty nice, clean, easy situation. On Tal'Darim Altar, this is a nice little build because we can siege on the low ground and hit from a high with the siege tanks. The big thing that we want to just make sure that we do is that we're beating our opponent to siege mode. If for some reason our opponent rushed for tanks, we still have a nice opportunity to hit him from this side, to move over here and hit him from this side, and the Banshees are going to be the anti-tank unit. How many SCVs did we bring? Well, we had one out in the middle, and we just brought another 5. It's a pretty easy, nice, simple, clean little win. Now, I We'll be honest, I'm normally the advocate of doing long-term play, thinking about all the sorts of mid and late game things, but you know what? That's a really simple, easy build to do, with some simple components to it. Positioning of our units early on, the Marines, and then letting what comes to us determine what the opponent's up to. Oh, we saw a Reaper. I guess he's probably going for some sort of early expand, or at the very least, a delayed Banshee. I haven't seen anything yet. Or I guess he must be going for some sort of tech, perhaps an expand. In the expand case, we're actually totally happy. If we see some Hellions at the front, oh wow, then we're almost certain that he's going for some sort of Banshee-focused play. All these things give us a lot of good information. And in this circumstance, since we saw the Reaper, easy push. And the last little tidbit is, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, with our initial Banshee harassment, we're trying to pick off units rather than SCVs. A little bit of a difference, but now, easy peasy, clean, simple win. What we're going to end up doing in part 2 and 3 is look at a gameplay opening from Puma that's, again, pretty clear, pretty fun, but has a much more long-term focus. This was some warm-up, in case any of you have been losing in the TvT front. And as long as we know when to save our scans, where to scan, and what to do with them, boy howdy, we're in good shape. I'm going to go take a break. Let's listen to music. Woo!